Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Today's video is all about 5 crime fiction series that I would like to finish. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name's Alice and I have way too many books, and one of the problems in my reading of way too many books is that I have started a lot of series, and I think today's video, which is going to feature 5 series that I want to read and 1 series that I've recently finished, is a way of avoiding making a video about all of my series that I've got ongoing, because I fear that since I last made a video about all my series, I may have started even more series and not finished that many. So yeah, postponing that for another day. But if you would like to see a full video on series, do let me know in the comments. I was inspired to make this video by the fact that recently I finally came to the end of a crime series that I had been following and reading for some time. And this doesn't often happen to me, because if you are a crime or thriller reader, you will know that once crime authors start having a popular character, we tend to get books continuing on and on and on about that character. And I really like that. It's one of the things I've enjoyed in crime fiction over the years. When I find a good crime fiction series, I have really enjoyed the fact that there are plenty of books to get stuck into. If there's a great lead character for me to follow, I love that. The series that I recently came to the end of was the Ruth Galloway series by Ellie Griffiths, and this was a crime series that I'd listened to completely on audiobook, and that is quite rare for me, because aside from this book series, I would say I have not really found any crime audiobooks that really I have hugely enjoyed, and I found the Ruth Galloway series to be perfect for audio. It had a narrator that sensibly matched the tone of the books, and great setting in Norfolk, which is where I was born in the UK, so I loved that. And I really liked some of the cast of characters. Maybe Ruth Galloway herself, who was a forensic archaeologist, was not my top favourite character within the series, but I particularly loved her police officer character, Nelson. This was a really good series of 15 books. They worked well on audio because I feel like these were a really well-paced crime fiction series to work well on audio, so they were not too fast-paced, and they tended to follow a certain pattern that I found really consumable on audio, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I absolutely have very much enjoyed that series. I will likely make one of my readers' guides videos about those. Kind of sad it's come to an end, but I also do think that there is merit in ending a series while there is still interest in it, and while you feel that you've done enough books in the series as an author. Upon reaching the end of a crime series, I thought today I would talk to you about my 5 crime and thriller series that I most want to finish, and that I feel like still at this point in time I will definitely seek out and read all of the books in the series. And I'm going to start with the first crime series I ever loved, and that is Ian Rankin and his John Rebus series. John Rebus started out in the book Knots and Crosses. I think it came out in the 90s, but I started reading this series in 2005 when I bought the first book on a bookstore at university, and really fond memories of that, and starting this series just after I had finished my final exams, I believe. I think I credit this series as being like my way into crime fiction. I found this even before I found Agatha Christie, And it really changed what I read, because prior to that I had really been a reader of contemporary fiction. I just used to pick up whatever contemporary fiction I could get my hands on in charity shops. I'd been looking at this series on the stall in the student union for a little while before I took the plunge, and my then boyfriend, who is now my husband, read the book after me, and we went back to the store and bought the next 3, I think it was, in the series, and I never stopped reading this series. And this series officially, I believe, has 24 full-length novels. I don't know about any short stories. I have read some Ian Rankin short stories that I think were about Rebus, but yes, 24 full novels, and I am on book number 22. So this will be my next book to pick up, In a House of Lies. And John Rebus has basically gone from, I think in the first book he was a detective constable, and he worked his way up in the police force a little bit, to most of the series he was DI Rebus. And these books are kind of set in real time, so they do have like a backdrop of real events, and they're set in Edinburgh in Scotland, and I just have always really enjoyed the character of John Rebus, so very much still have a fondness for this. The last time I read one, I think, was over a year ago now, because this was the book I showed in my last series video, which was over a year ago, and I still haven't got to this, but I would really, really like to. The other 2 books left in the series for me to read are A Song for the Dark Times and A Heart Full of Headstones, and I don't own either of those books yet, because I have tried to stop myself buying more books in series that I'm reading than just the next one that I need to get to. There are exceptions to that, but yes, I have only got this one on my shelves to read. Next up, I think, is the series that I've been reading probably the next longest, and that is Karen Slaughter's Will Trent series. I started off with Karen Slaughter with the Grant County series, which I highly, highly recommend, and I do need to get around to making a video about those, because although Karen Slaughter writes incredibly brutal stories that are very gory and gruesome and not to be recommended to everybody, I would say, they are on definitely the darker side of crime fiction, I still really liked her writing when I first picked her books up, which was probably around 2006, maybe 2007. I followed the Grant County series to its conclusion, and then came the Will Trent series, which I do not like as much as the Grant County series, it has to be said. And I don't think I've liked some of the Will Trent books as much as some of Karen Slaughter's recent standalones either. So there is that. But one thing I really do like about the Will Trent series, without giving any spoilers, is that after a few books it began to cross over with the Grant County series, and we re-encountered some of the characters from that series, and that is something I really, really like in these books. The next book I have to read, I think, might be book 7. I think I've read 6 books in the series, and I think this is book 7. And I do know that there are characters in this that cross over from the Grant County series, so that's something I really like and I'm looking forward to. And in total, I think, at the moment, I believe there's 11 books in this series, and there will be 12 because there's another one going to be published later this year. The other books I haven't read yet are The Kept Woman, The Last Widow, The Silent Wife, After That Night, and I believe the new one coming out this year will be called This Is Why We Lied. So at the moment, Will Trent is definitely a series I want to continue with, and Will Trent is also like a detective, I guess. These ones are set in the US, and I think that they're mainly in the sort of Georgia area. So yes, provided that we keep getting characters from the Grant County series, I will absolutely continue to read Will Trent. Although I don't find the investigator character as compelling in these ones. He is a very interesting character with a really complicated and interesting background. Next up, quite a different part of the crime fiction genre is historical crime fiction, and this is the only historical fiction crime series that I have ever got into, and I really liked it. And we have recently had the very sad news that the author of this series has passed away, and that is the Shard Lake series, which has recently had an adaptation made of it, so I would really like to go back to this series. I've only read 2 books in the Shard Lake series, and there are 7 books. I have actually read this series out of order, so I started with book 3, not something that I normally do, and I then went back and read book 1. This is book 2 in the series, Darkfire, which is the next one that I need to read, and after I've read Darkfire I will go on to book 4, Revelation, and I also still have Heartstone, Lamentation and Tombland left to read. I do have 3 more of these on my shelves. I think that's because my mum bought me several of them when I was getting into the series. The Shard Lake series is really interesting. It follows Matthew Shardlake, who kind of works, I think, for Thomas Cromwell, who was also famously immortalised in Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall trilogy. Shardlake, I believe, is a lawyer in these Tudor times, and he is the investigator in the stories. A really interesting character, and yeah, I definitely need to get back to this series, refresh my memory of it before watching the TV series. The next series I wanted to talk about is The Shortest, and I did mention this one in my recent TBR video, and that is a Dick Francis series. Dick Francis didn't really write characters who reoccurred in more than one of his books. I think there was one character who appeared in 2 books, both of which I've read. That was a great little duology, as it were. And he also writes about ex-jockey Sid Halley. He wrote about Sid Halley more times than he wrote about any of his other leading men. And Sid Halley is an ex-jockey turned investigator who has been caught up in various different, usually violent crimes. So I am on to the 3rd out of 4 books of these. The one I need to read next is Come to Grief. This is one I was hoping to read this month in May, so fingers crossed I will be continuing this series this month. The other book I have left to read is called Under Orders. The final series, which I expect is the one you've all been anticipating, is of course the Jack Reacher series by Lee Child. This one I would say is more thrillerish than crime, although there definitely are crimes in the Reacher series and a lot of violence. I have reached the point where I'm onto the books that are being written by Lee Child with his brother Andrew Child, and Lee Child announced several years back now that he was going to be passing over the Jack Reacher series to his brother Andrew Child. I think that the idea was that they would write a few of the books together and then the series would be handed over altogether. So I don't quite know if that has happened yet. I do believe there are 28 books currently published in this series, with a 29th book coming this year. I'm on to book 25, The Sentinel, which I would really like to get to in the next few months because I really want to catch up on this series and finish it. And Jack Reacher, in case you haven't heard me rave about him before as a character, is ex-army. He's currently a drifter, and in each book he tends to end up in a different state of the USA, a different place, a different town, usually runs into somebody or something where justice needs to be done, Jack Reacher style. And he was formerly a special investigator in the army, and he uses those skills as well as quite a lot of violence in the Reacher books. I have really enjoyed this series ever since first picking it up. I haven't always read this series in order, but I have for some time now been reading it in order. of publication. If you want to know a lot more about the Jack Reacher series, I do have several videos that I've made about these books and about the television series that was made, and the main video I have about this is in my Reader's Guide series, and will tell you everything you could want to know about most of the books, in what order you might want to read them in, and that sort of thing. After reading The Sentinel, the other books I have remaining are Better Off Dead, No Plan B, The Secret, which was published last year, and I think this year's book will be called In Too Deep. So the Jack Reacher series is definitely one that is still getting published. I have 2 of these actually physically owned on my TBR. So that brings us to the end of my 5 crime series that I really want to finish at some point. Probably not within this year, because I do like to vary up with crime series, and I don't always feel that you need to read them that close together to keep like plot details in your head, not like other series that I've started reading more recently, like fantasy series for example, which are more normally in sort of trilogies or just smaller amounts of books. With those I have tended to want to keep the characters in my head a bit more and read them a bit closer together, whereas I think with crime series you're kind of in it for the long haul. I would love for you to let me know, do you have any crime, mystery or thriller series on the go? And if you do, what are they? Do you recommend them? Are there any crime series you would recommend to me based on the ones that I love and want to finish? Do let me know all of that in the comments down below. And if you've watched the video but are not really reading crime series, do let me know what is your favourite series you have on the go at the moment. If you don't read books in series or you don't have a comment to leave today, I would love it if you would let me know that you were here by leaving me some sort of crime thriller related emoji in the comments. If you have enjoyed this video today, I'd love it if you gave it a like, and if you perhaps would consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I will hope very much to see you all again soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.